Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
This is episode 27 of That Shakespeare Life.
Hi, I'm David Bevington, American literary scholar and award-winning Shakespeare editor, author, and professor. Another great method for studying William Shakespeare includes listening to this. It's That Shakespeare Life with my friend, Cassidy Cash.
Shakespeare's beard looks different in the Chandos portrait than it does in his final portraits. The first folio beard is much more tended, much smaller, although it's not very long. It actually looks kind of trendy, I think, and he's got that great earring. He looks really hipster in that Chandos picture.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
From the Chandos portrait to the first folio engraving, all of our visual depictions of William Shakespeare show him with a full-face beard. But was this grooming style typical for Elizabethans, or was William Shakespeare stepping outside the norm with his choice of personal style? We think of Shakespeare as this artistic hipster guy today, but how much of that is our culture, and what did the Elizabethans actually think about Shakespeare's beard? Here to help us explore the social and gender implications of Shakespeare's beard is a man who has written multiple books and articles on the significance of men's facial hair in the 16th century, Dr. Christopher Oldstone-Moore. Chris is a senior lecturer at Wright State University and author of the book Of Beards and Men, The Revealing History of Facial Hair. His research focuses on gender and masculinity, and particularly the aspect of the hair and the body. He published Social Science, Gender Theory, and the History of Hair in New Perspectives on the History of Facial Hair in 2018, and received the Wright State Presidential Award for Faculty Excellence, Outstanding Lecturer in 2016, among many other additional awards and publications. Chris joins us today to discuss the history of Shakespeare's beard and to answer questions about what we can tell about the bard's personality and position in society from his choice of facial hair. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
In the 15th century, most portraits show men clean-shaven. But when we get to William Shakespeare, his contemporaries, and even Shakespeare himself, but people like John Knox and Sir Francis Drake, their portraits show them with this full beard. And I wonder, historically, when did that shift happen? When did the beard come back into fashion, and what caused this change?
All right. Well, the short answer to your question is the 1510s. That was the magic decade. And in the 1510s, you see a change, and it really comes from Italy. It's the Italian Renaissance that is setting the cultural trends in the early modern period. And I'm going to blame the artists, the great Renaissance artists.
Really?
Like Raphael and those folks. And literary people. Cultural leaders, shall we say, of the Italian Renaissance set a fashion for beards in that decade. And their artists, of course, represented those people. There's a Raphael portrait of Baldassare Castiglione, a famous writer of the Renaissance. And he has this big black beard. And then you see Michelangelo adopts a beard as well in that period. And, they're representing themselves in self-portraits and so forth. And
that really was kind of an artistic hipster movie.
Yes. Oh, well, I don't know about hipster exactly. Yeah, but they were the artistic, cultural people of the time. Yeah, and they were setting a new trend. So in that sense, sure, you can call it hipster.
Associated with the arts. Well, facial hair carries so many religious connotations with it. Many major religions not only conflict with each other, but even within different factions of the same religion, they'll often go back and forth on the acceptability of facial hair. And since for William Shakespeare's lifetime, there was a lot of tension between the Catholics and the Protestants, I was wondering if the Pope, who was known to wear a beard, influenced the desire to wear a beard as a way to align yourself with one side of that argument or another.
I would say the Pope is a late adopter in this case. The Catholic Church had a long history of shaving, that is to say, associating holiness with shaving, and I won't go into all that. But throughout the Middle Ages, actually, it's another episode, but the short version of it is that it was canon law to shave for all priests, all men of the cloth, and throughout the Middle Ages and late Middle Ages. So it was strongly established both in canon law and in theology that shaving was part of holiness in the Catholic Church. And so when the popes start to grow beards, they actually Pope Julius, who was a very secular pope.
This is Pope Julius II, right?
Yes, Pope Julius II. Michelangelo's Pope Julius II, the man who commissioned the Sistine Chapel. He was a very worldly man, and he briefly grew a beard, kind of in that era that I was just talking about earlier.
I thought his beard was for mourning specifically.
Yeah, well, they say.
Okay.
No, I think he actually grew it when he was on military campaign.
Oh, okay.
The mourning beard was Clement, and so he was a later pope who Pope Clement V grew his beard in mourning, and that is true. And then Pope Pius, that you mentioned, is later than that. So the popes are wavering because there's this tradition of shaving. They're going back and forth, and in fact, in the Reformation, the Protestants wholeheartedly embrace beards right away. And say, we're free from this Catholic tyranny. And we can grow our beards without worrying about tradition or canon law or any such thing.
Which leads me to actually my next question. And you mentioned Pope Pius, but I wondered about this because Queen Elizabeth I was staunchly Protestant, and Pope Pius V was the one that excommunicated her. And he, at least from what I've read, and you will know more than me, but he wore a beard, and he was specifically depicted with a long white beard. And I wondered if that influenced Elizabeth's dislike of beards, considering what you just said, that the Protestants really preferred them, but not her.
Yeah, well, I think by this time, the bearded pope is pretty much a standard. It's standard across the board for Protestants and Catholics, in the late 16th century. So the Pope is not actually very unusual. And I think Elizabeth's distaste for beards is more personal and is not political. She was surrounded by bearded men, so she had to deal with it.
Okay. Well, did Shakespeare have to pay a tax to wear a beard under Queen Elizabeth?
No. I don't think anyone paid a tax for their beards under Queen Elizabeth. There's some sources that suggest that at least that was discussed, because Henry had done something briefly on that order to try to control beards a little bit in his court. Maybe Elizabeth considered doing that, but it was never really. Someone has looked in the record office, and they can't find anything written.
Okay.
That there was ever a beard tax.
So it was thought about as something we might do, but it wasn't implemented?
Yeah, and it was never enforced, yeah.
Now, this reference is a little after Shakespeare. I couldn't find one that fit right within Shakespeare's lifetime, but Giles Moore in 1655, he kept a journal. And in his journal, he notes that he paid for barbering for 6 months. And I wonder, would Shakespeare have had something similar? Would he have gone to regular barbering and paid for it 6 months at a time?
I think so. I think he would have been barbered. I've looked carefully at his portraits and his death mask and so forth, and he has a very well-kept beard. And so that's one of the things that you would look for in a barber. The barber would do all your hair and some of your other minor body maintenance issues as well.
What was
And then,
involved
so
in going to the barber? I read that and I went, I don't even think I know what this means to pay for your barbering. What all is involved in being, do you say barbered? Is that even how you would refer to that?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, what's
Yeah.
involved in being
Well,
barbered?
literally that term means beard. You know, a barb is a beard. So
Okay.
the term barber comes from trimming and caring for the beard or shaving the beard. And so barbers took care of the beard. They took care of your hair. You know, they cut your hair as barbers do today. And they also perform minor surgery and tended cuts and applied balms to your skin rashes, and just they were a little bit doctors as well.
So other than offering surgery on the side, what are the
Yeah.
major differences between beard care for William Shakespeare and what happens in barbershops today?
You know, I think that what's striking is it's remarkably similar. And, you know, they would have used straight razors, of course, but some traditionalist barbers are using straight razors today. And so they're using implements and unguents and oils and that are not that dissimilar to a more traditionalist barbershop of today.
It's kind of an example of when you find something that works, you just stick with it.
It's pretty simple, straightforward thing. It's more of a, you know, when you think of shaving, it's more of an art rather than, you know, a technology.
I was impressed with some of the images I was able to find on this topic. They show, it was a lot like what you think of barbershops. You would walk in and they would have the chairs and they have the basins and it's just the same kind of, so really going to a barbershop today is kind of a Shakespearean experience in that sense.
Oh, I think so. Especially now we're getting back into beards. And, you know, that means that there's got to be some beards are high maintenance. You can't just, you know, some people argue, you wear a beard because you're lazy. Well, actually, most beards require some attention. And so you might find yourself going to a barbershop even more, spending more time there to take care of more hair.
To take care of it. That reputation of a beard requiring a lot of care was an interesting thought, because I read that the Vikings had beards and they were considered by the English very nasty, sort of unkept people. But by the time Shakespeare is there, obviously that opinion of beards has changed. So what was the opinion of Elizabethan society about men wearing beards? Was it considered, you know, nasty lack of personal grooming, or was it this sign of affluence?
I think that's the magic of the Renaissance. It's a little bit of both. The Renaissance was more interested in the natural, in truth in nature. And when you think about Shakespeare's plays especially, all his discussion about nature and natural and the exploration of the truth which is found in nature. And this is in some sense contrary to the medieval period, which was so interested in the supernatural, right? And in the spiritual and the afterlife. And you see in the Renaissance this turn towards an interest in the natural world and natural human nature, rather. And so I think the beardedness of the Renaissance is a reflection of that interest in the natural and natural manliness. On the other hand, too much nature and too much nature that's out of control, that is not under civilization's guidance, is an unacceptable thing. So what you want is sort of a tended beard, like a tended garden, which is also a popular thing in the Renaissance, if you think about it. A tended beard represents the flourishing of the natural, but under the control of the civilizing force.
So sort of Woodstock versus the brawny towel men.
Yeah, right. Well, and look at Shakespeare's beard. It is a very shaped, tended beard. It is
an art form, like you said.
Yes, yeah, like an art form, and a man of sophistication, but also a man of natural gifts, right? And so you have both of those running at the same time.
Well, was there a particular style of beard that was most popular for the English? And is that the one Shakespeare's wearing in the Chandos portrait?
Well,
not to ask a loaded question or anything.
Yeah. Well, let me think through that question for a second. But the problem with beard styles is, as you can imagine, as they do today, they change from decade to decade. And so Shakespeare's beard looks different in the Chandos portrait than it does in his final portraits, like the one in the first folio, for example. The first folio beard is much more tended, much smaller. I think that's because it was a little later. I think the Chandos beard is a little earlier, which means that it's, of a period that's more interested in fuller beard, and he has a fuller beard, although it's not very long. It actually looks kind of trendy, I think, and he's got that great earring. He looks really hipster in that Chandos picture.
He really does.
Hipster, because it's, it's a full but scruffy kind of looking beard with the earring, as I say. But in his later portraits, he has a much more carefully tended goatee style of beard, more like a Van Dyke, which was very much a style of the gentleman in the early 17th century.
Very polished for his station.
Right.
Yeah.
And he looks more like the artist, the hipster artist, I guess, in the Chandos portrait, which may be more what he looked like as a younger man. So it's appealing that way.
I like to think Shakespeare was cool like that in his younger
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Thomas More in the mid-16th century was said to have grown a beard out of mourning. And I wondered, we talked about this just a little bit earlier, but I did want to ask specifically, had this idea of wearing a beard to mourn a major loss or to acknowledge a major turning point in your life gone out of fashion by the time Shakespeare was wearing a beard? Or is there something to read into the fact that he's wearing a beard? Is that an expression of him saying, I'm a different person now?
I don't see it in Shakespeare because the difference in time is the key here. Thomas More lived in a time of shaving. He was in the transition time, but he grew up in a time and still was in a time of shaving. And so growing a beard would have been a show of his unkempt nature, that he had lost his honor and his position and his happiness. But in Shakespeare's time, beards were the norm. So I think what you'd see is that if a person grew an unkempt beard, right, and let it grow out without tending it, that would be a sign of mourning. And also when men would go out on vacation, out in the woods or out in the country and didn't have to look good at court or whatever, they could also let it grow out in the same kind of way. So it's the condition of the beard rather than having a beard.
I'm not wearing makeup, I'm on vacation.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, I know we would love to explore this topic further, and you undoubtedly have a lot of knowledge on this topic in particular. So I wonder, what are your favorite books or resources which you might recommend to us to learn more about beards in Shakespeare's lifetime?
Okay, well, there's my book.
Of course, yes.
I have a little bit about Shakespeare, and I talk about his plays and how Shakespeare uses a beard as a sort of synecdoche for manhood. And also he relates beards and nature and truth as well. So there's that. There's a new book.
What was the title of your book?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Of Beards and Men, The Revealing History of Facial Hair. And it came out in 2016.
Okay.
And then another book you might look at, because it has a few nice articles in it about early modern period Shakespeare's time, is a book called New Perspectives on the History of Facial Hair. And that's edited by Jennifer Evans and Alan Withy. And that's published by Palgrave Macmillan. And that came out last year, 2017. Let me look here. Yeah. So those are two excellent, 2018, excuse me, this year. Those are two good sources if you want to look into it.
Thank you very much. We'll link to those. I actually had a couple of articles from Alan Withy that I read getting ready for this episode. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll link over to that.
I hope he writes more too. I think he's still working on the project. And if you're really interested, you could try to contact him,
Yeah, we should do that. Well, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible. So your choice would be in addition to those.
Well, I don't know what this is going to sound like, but I would take a nice big coffee table picture book, A History of Art. That's not a novel, and that might disappoint your listeners. But I just find myself being drawn to looking at this, historical art. And here's what I think. why I love to go back and back and back to it is that it provides a sort of a visual framework for fantasies of the past that I enjoy.
Very good choice, I think. Yeah, because you could always go back to that and find something new.
Yeah, you invent your own stories and narratives and imagination from, as I say, from these visual frames.
Well, what's next for you? What are you working on now that you're excited about?
Oh, well, I'm done with facial hair for now. I'm working on a new project called The History of Adventure. And what I want to look at in the modern period is what adventures people go on and why. And over time, people, societies prefer certain kinds of adventures. Like think about mountain climbers in the 19th century or Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart in the early 20th century, where they go out and they embark on this great adventure, and it means something for that civilization. So I want to explore the history of adventure.
Well, that sounds very exciting. We'll definitely be looking forward to that project. Chris, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Cassidy. I've enjoyed it.
To see pictures of the various styles of beards like the Van Dyke, or to take a look at Pope Julius and his beard and the different things we talked about in today's episode, all of these resources, images, and links to find more about Christopher Oldstone-Moore and his latest book, you can visit today's show notes. All of that can be found at CassidyCash.com/episode 27. That's CassidyCash.com/EP27. The Chandos portrait that you heard us talk about in today's episode, as well as the Van Dyke style beard that was common during the Elizabethan era and shown on the first folio engraving portrait of William Shakespeare, are things that we will be seeing on our Life of Shakespeare tour in September 2019. And you can go with us to see this portrait as well as to walk through all the other iconic sites of Shakespeare's life from his birth to his grave. We will be going for 4 glorious days. We will be spending part of that time in Stratford-upon-Avon, and we'll spend a little bit of time in London getting to see the Globe and other Shakespeare sites there as well. To find out more about this trip and to reserve your spot to travel with us, please visit CassidyCash.com/travel Shakespeare. That's it for this week here at That Shakespeare Life. Until next time, I'm Cassidy Cash, that Shakespeare girl, and I hope your week is a Shakespeare-filled week.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life.